Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe and support me. The roar of New York City traffic was drowned out by the thunderous crash of buildings collapsing. The ground shook beneath the feet of the Avengers as they stood, bewildered, amidst the chaos. Cars screeched to a halt, horns blaring in panic. Civilians screamed, running in every direction to escape the unfolding disaster. For years, Earth's mightiest heroes had faced gods, aliens, and mad titans. They had battled across galaxies and saved the world from annihilation more times than they could count. But today, their enemy wasn't from another planet or another realm. This time, their adversaries were ordinary humans who had somehow become more powerful than anyone could have imagined. Avengers, fall back! Captain America's voice rang out, cutting through the pandemonium. His shield, dented and scorched, hung loosely in his grip. He had never seen an attack like this, not from humans. It didn't make sense. Tony Stark's repulsor beams fired from the sky, knocking back one of the assailants, an exterminator who had just crushed a car with his bare hands. But before Tony could land a follow-up shot, the man's eyes glowed, and Stark's suit malfunctioned, sending him spiraling uncontrollably into the ground. He crashed through the side of a building, disappearing in a cloud of smoke. "This is bad, really bad," Black Widow muttered, dodging debris as she weaved through the chaos, her taser batons crackling with electricity. Hawkeye loosed an arrow that whizzed past her, narrowly missing another exterminator who shrugged off the explosive tip like it was nothing more than a mosquito bite. From the shadows, a figure emerged, a tall man, with piercing eyes that glowed faintly in the dark, commanding an aura of absolute power. Marcus Kane. Once, he had been just like any other man, obsessed with superheroes, following their every move, idolizing them. Now, he was something else entirely. Marcus stood calmly in the midst of the destruction, watching as his exterminators dismantled the Avengers with chilling efficiency. His expression was one of indifference, as though the carnage unfolding before him was a natural progression of events. "This ends now," Captain America shouted, throwing his shield toward Marcus. But in a blur of movement, Marcus raised his hand, and the shield stopped midair, suspended by an invisible force. With a flick of his wrist, it reversed direction and shot back toward Steve Rogers, who barely ducked in time to avoid decapitation. "Steve, we need to regroup," Natasha yelled, darting to his side. "He's too strong," Cap muttered, frustration clear in his voice. "We need a new strategy." In the distance, Thor was locked in combat with another exterminator, his hammer clashing against the enemy's fists in a storm of lightning and thunder. But even the god of thunder was being pushed back, his strength seemingly matched by this human foe. Tony's voice crackled over the comms, struggling to be heard over the static. "Cop a broken bar, we broken bar, tow a broken bar, retreat a broken bar." The connection fizzled out, leaving only silence. Cap clenched his fists. This wasn't a battle they could win, not today. They were outmatched in every way. "Fall back," he ordered, his voice resolute. The Avengers had faced countless threats before, but this one was different. And until they understood exactly what they were dealing with, charging in headfirst would only get them killed. As they retreated, Marcus Kane watched them go, his lips curling into a satisfied smile. He had won the first battle, and he knew it. But for Marcus, this was only the beginning. Hours later, in a hidden underground facility on the outskirts of the city, the Avengers regrouped. The air was thick with tension as each of them processed what had happened. Tony Stark sat hunched over a table, his suit battered and sparking. His face, usually full of bravado, was etched with frustration. "We underestimated them," Tony said flatly, staring at the holographic display in front of him. It showed the events of the day, footage from security cameras and news broadcasts. Every frame showed the exterminators tearing through the city, effortlessly overpowering the Avengers. "Who the hell are these people?" Clint Barton asked, his voice laced with anger. "They're just a broken bar humans, right?" Steve Rogers shook his head. "They were human, once. But whatever they've become now, a broken bar, it's something else entirely. It's not just strength, Natasha added, her voice low. It's precision. They knew exactly how to counter each of us. It's like they've been watching us, studying our every move. Tony nodded. And they've got tech that rivals mine. Whoever Marcus Kane is, he's not just some power-hungry maniac. He's got resources, intelligence. See, a broken bar and a serious vendetta against us. Why? Steve asked, pacing the room. What's his endgame? What does he want? Bruce Banner, standing quietly in the corner, finally spoke. He wants to destroy us, all of us. The room fell silent as Bruce's words hung in the air. Destroy them? Why? What had they done to deserve this? We need to understand him, Steve said after a long pause. Find out who he is, why he's doing this. I already know who he is, Tony replied, his fingers tapping furiously on the holographic keyboard. Marcus Kane, former fanboy turned full-on sociopath. He's been off the grid for years, but I just pulled up some old files. The screen flickered to life, showing an image of Marcus as a younger man, standing in front of the Avengers Tower, beaming with excitement. The photo was from years ago, back when Marcus was nothing more than a starstruck fan. He was obsessed with us, Tony explained, followed every battle, every mission. But something changed. He went dark about 5 years ago. No social media, no public appearances. It's like he vanished. And now he's back, leading an army of superhumans, Natasha mused, folding her arms. What happened to him? Bruce frowned, stepping closer to the screen. He must have found something that gave him and his followers their powers. Something dangerous, Steve added, his mind racing with possibilities. We need to find out what it was and stop it before it spreads. 5 years earlier, Marcus Kane had stood among a crowd of fans, staring up at the Avengers Tower with awe in his eyes. He had idolized them. They were gods among men, protectors of the weak, symbols of hope. But over time, his admiration had turned to doubt, and doubt had turned to disillusionment. The battles had become too frequent. Cities were destroyed, lives were lost, and all in the name of keeping the peace. To Marcus, it seemed like the world was stuck in a never-ending cycle of destruction, with the Avengers at its center. He began to wonder, what if the world didn't need them? What if humanity could be better, stronger, without relying on these so-called heroes? That question gnawed at him, and soon he found himself searching for answers. His journey led him to the remote jungles of South America, where ancient ruins whispered of forgotten powers. It was there, among the crumbling stone temples and forbidden rituals, that Marcus discovered the key to his transformation. The ritual was dangerous, a long-forgotten relic of an age when humans had once sought to transcend their limitations. Marcus completed the ritual, enduring unimaginable pain as his body and mind were forever changed. When it was over, he emerged with powers beyond anything he could have dreamed of. And he wasn't alone. Marcus returned to the world with a new purpose, to free humanity from the shackles of superheroes. He gathered followers, ordinary people who shared his belief that the time of heroes had passed. He led them through the same ritual, transforming them into exterminators, warriors with one goal, the destruction of every superhero on Earth. Marcus Kane watched the city lights flicker below, his arms crossed as the cool night air swept across the balcony. His exterminators were still out there, regrouping after their victory. They had sent the Avengers a message today, one that would echo across the world. The age of superheroes was over. He turned as footsteps approached behind him. It was Eva, one of his most trusted exterminators, a woman who had once been a tech genius working for a startup in Silicon Valley before she had seen the truth in Marcus's vision. Now, she was more than a genius, she was unstoppable. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight braid, and her sharp, calculating eyes glinted with intensity. "It's done," she said, her voice cool and controlled. "The Avengers have retreated. They won't be bothering us for a while." Marcus nodded, a hint of satisfaction playing on his lips. Good. But this was just the opening move. We're not finished. Do you really think they'll just roll over and accept defeat? Eva asked, stepping forward to stand beside him. They're superheroes, they're not built to give up. Marcus's expression hardened. No, they won't give up, but they'll start questioning themselves. That's what we need. If we can make them doubt their purpose, yeah, make the world doubt Ama, then their power crumbles. Heroes only exist because people believe in them. Eva glanced down at the streets below, where police sirens wailed in the distance. And if they don't, then we show them what real power looks like, Marcus said, his voice low and dangerous. The ritual isn't just a gift, it's a weapon. And if we have to use it to cleanse the world of these false gods, then so be it. He turned to Eva, his gaze sharp. Prepare the next phase. I want the ritual broadcast globally. It's time humanity know what's possibly what they can become. Eva hesitated, her brow furrowing slightly. Marcus, if we broadcast the ritual, we're opening Pandora's box. Anyone could gain these powers. We won't be able to control what happens next. I don't want to control it, Marcus replied, his voice cold. I want to set humanity free. The Avengers hadn't felt this defeated in a long time. They had faced cosmic entities, genocidal warlords, and threats from other dimensions, but something about this felt different. The Exterminators weren't just enemies, they were a reflection of humanity's own desires, its darker impulses. And that made them unpredictable. Tony Stark was in his lab, furiously working on a new suit upgrade. His mind was racing through possible countermeasures, but nothing seemed to stick. Every time he thought of a solution, he came back to the same problem. The Exterminators weren't just using advanced technology or brute strength, they were using something more primal, something he couldn't quite quantify. Tony, Steve Rogers' voice broke the silence as he entered the lab. His face was lined with exhaustion, but his eyes were sharp, determined. We need to talk. Yeah, I know, Tony muttered without looking up. His hands moved quickly, assembling a piece of tech. I'm already working on it. It's not just about the tech, Steve said, stepping closer. We need to figure out who they are, what they want. This isn't just a fight we can win by punching harder or building a bigger suit. Tony set down his tools and turned to face Steve, his expression hard. You think I don't know that? They caught us off guard because we didn't see this coming. They're using something we don't understand, and we're flying blind. That's why we need to get inside their heads, Steve insisted. Figure out their next move before they make it. Tony let out a long breath, rubbing his temples. All right, let's say we do that. We find out who they are and why they're doing this. What then? We ask them nicely to stop? No, Steve replied, his voice steady. We remind them why the world needs us. They're trying to make people believe that heroes are obsolete. We need to prove them wrong. Marcus Kane stood in front of a massive array of monitors in a darkened room, his fingers hovering over a control panel. Eva and several other exterminators stood behind him, watching as he prepared to initiate the global broadcast of the ritual. This would be the turning point at the moment humanity was given the choice to become something more, something greater than they had ever dreamed. This is it, Marcus said quietly, his eyes focused on the screens. Once we do this, there's no going back. Eva stepped forward, her face illuminated by the glow of the monitors. Are you sure about this? If the Avengers find out what we're doing, they can't stop us. Marcus cut her off. This is bigger than them now. This is about the future of our species. With a final, decisive motion, Marcus activated the broadcast. Across the world, screens flickered to life, showing the same image. Marcus Kane standing in front of the ancient temple where the ritual had taken place. His voice rang out, clear and powerful. People of Earth, he began, for too long, you have been held captive by the idea that only a select few can possess power. That only those born different, or gifted by fate, can shape the world. But that ends today. He paused, letting his words sink in. I was once like you, he continued. Ordinary, powerless. I believed in heroes. I believed they were our salvation. But I was wrong. Heroes are not the answer, they are the problem. In every country, in every city, people watched in stunned silence as Marcus spoke. The ritual I discovered can change everything. It can give you the power you've always been denied. The power to be more than human. Today, I offer you a choice. You can continue to live in the shadows of your so-called heroes, or you can take control of your own destiny. As Marcus's speech echoed across the globe, the Avengers watched in horror from their hidden base. Tony's eyes widened as he saw what Marcus was doing. He's broadcasting the ritual, Tony muttered. He's giving it to everyone. Steve's face was grim. We need to stop this now. The Avengers scrambled into action, racing to intercept the Exterminators before the ritual could spread any further. But Marcus had planned for this. As the heroes approached the Exterminators' stronghold, they were met with overwhelming resistance. The battle was fierce, with both sides unleashing everything they had. But the Exterminators were prepared. They had studied the Avengers, anticipated their every move. And despite the heroes' best efforts, they were once again outmatched. In the midst of the chaos, Marcus faced Captain America, his eyes filled with cold determination. "You can't stop this," Marcus said, his voice steady. "The world is changing, whether you like it or not." Steve clenched his jaw, his shield raised. "You think giving people power like this will make things better? It'll only lead to chaos. You can't control what happens next." "I don't want to control it," Marcus replied, his voice calm. "I want to free humanity from the illusion that they need you." With a swift motion, Marcus lunged, his fists crackling with energy. The two men clashed, the force of their blows shaking the ground beneath them. Tony and the others fought desperately to hold back the Exterminators, but they were losing ground. The ritual had already begun to spread, and more people were beginning to unlock their newfound powers. As the battle raged, Tony's voice crackled over the comms. "I've got a plan, but it's risky. We can disable the broadcast, but it'll take everything we've got." "Do it," Steve replied, deflecting another of Marcus's attacks. "We don't have a choice." In the final moments of the battle, Tony unleashed his last invention, a device that scrambled the signal of the broadcast, cutting it off before it could fully spread. Marcus, realizing what was happening, let out a roar of rage, his powers surging in a final, desperate attack. But it was too late. The ritual had been stopped. Marcus was defeated. As the dust settled and the Exterminators were subdued, the Avengers stood victorious. But the victory felt hollow. The world had seen the power that Marcus had offered, and they would not forget. Even in defeat, Marcus's message had left its mark. The Avengers gathered in the aftermath, bruised and battered, but still standing. Steve looked out over the city, his face etched with uncertainty. "This isn't over," he said quietly. Tony nodded, his expression grim. "No, it's not." And so, with the threat of the Exterminators temporarily quelled, the Avengers were left to ponder the future. The world had changed, and the role of superheroes had never been more uncertain.